saw it all.
Okay.
Yeah, he saw it all. We dialogued them.
Beautiful.
Hey, we're live.
We are live, and the DOJ is supposed to be live right now, Joe. People are, Albert's out there fudding that it's about Binance, but I'm sitting here watching CZ live at Davos doing a stream. He doesn't look like somebody that's about to get arrested, so I don't think.
Yeah, and I'm with you. There would have been an Interpol warrant also out at this point if it
Yeah,
was, and they would have snatched him coming into Davos. It's not these guys. It's got to be somebody else. I mean, I
yeah,
could be wrong, of course, but I'm with you on this.
yeah. So I'm not too. It still could be
I'm,
something that impacts the market dramatically, but it's not. I'm
but
not
everything's rebounding.
betting
I
it's.
mean, yeah,
Yeah,
BTC dropped to like 24 to 24, 20,400. It's back up to 28, 2850. So to me, I think it was a little bit of a, trigger happy people ready to like book some
yeah,
profits.
yeah.
And
I
then all of
agree.
a sudden, wait, what? I had that DOJ page up too. So
Great.
um,
Okay.
waiting for it. I'll tell you when it goes live if we have other screens to show or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
cool. So today we have Rob the Bank from X7
mhm.
Finance joining us. That should be fun. You and I have gone through the white paper. I conceptually love the model. I think it'll be great for him to kind of explain to us what they're doing and how it came about and all that good stuff. But it's a really cool concept.
Yeah, I think that what's interesting to me is how they took, forked Uniswap and a couple of little other pieces that came out of it and made some tweaks to it that make a lot of sense to me. The technical guys will really appreciate that and be able to add a lot of value and discussion around those topics.
Yep.
But it just seems like an interesting ecosystem. And anything, I kind of went deeper into the startup lending pieces, and there's like 3 or 4 ways you can work that
Well, they're just lending
within
liquidity, right? Not lending money directly to them.
the liquidity lending pool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. So I was looking at the comments for a second, but yeah. So I'm sure Rob and his colleague will walk us through all of those and their thinking and how it works. But I love the concept of the liquidity sort of not the startup piece, but the other one, the liquidity pools being able to sort of leverage what they put into a pool to free up all that other capital for working capital needs or
Yeah.
development. So that's really cool. And I haven't seen that. I mean, maybe others have seen it somewhere else, but I haven't really seen that yet. So
No, I
to
really
me,
like it.
that's a big differentiator to me.
I really
Um,
like the model a lot. I think I think it's a powerful concept and it solves a huge problem in this space.
yeah,
So
exactly. And so it's all about execution, it seems to me at
right.
this
I mean,
point.
at the end of the day, it's going to come down to people being willing to participate. Right. There's the initial lending pool by them, and then there's obviously it's going to require members of the community to be lending as well. But the upside on the structure of the loans is really sweet when you look at the numbers in the white paper. So, I think it looks powerful. Somebody's saying in the comments that
Bit
the
Lazo.
announcement was
Yeah.
Bitlazo, whatever the fuck Bitlazo is. But
Bits
I haven't.
Lotto, I think.
This is
Right?
holy mackerel. Thanks for joining us today. Oh, KB said it first. I want to give the scoop to KB. That's my wife's initials, and
Oh,
that's what I call her. Um, Nothing Burger. Blue says higher X7 Finance will change DeFi, says DGen Slots. James, yeah, Bits Lazo. What a nothing announcement. Mark says thanks Jesus. KB says it's a Russian exchange. So awesome, man.
oh,
Womp
okay.
womp in a good way.
Yeah,
I'm not even
yeah.
seeing the conference isn't coming up. Where's everybody getting the news? Let me check
Yeah,
their Twitter feed.
yeah, I don't see it on, it's not going live either. Let's see what's going on over here.
DOJ. No. Oh, I'm in the wrong country. DOJ.
Mentally, not physically, right?
There you go. There you go.
All right, DOJ enforcement action. It's not last year. I don't see anything. Oh, let me get the past day. Live major move expected today. Major international crypto enforcement today. I don't see any name of who it is yet.
So I'm looking at tier 10K says DOJ enforcement action against Russian exchange Bits Lotto.
Okay.
So
Bits Lotto.
Usually the stuff they post, DB posts, is pretty accurate, but we'll see. Anyway, I'll stop sharing that screen for now, and we'll get ready here. So ADZ1DD says, long live DeFi. I can concur there. Hey, and those of you that are live with us today, our bulk of our listeners and viewers happens on the podcast. So I would encourage you to go to your favorite podcast app and subscribe there, because that's where a lot of the action has. But we love for you to also take a minute to subscribe and click the little bell so you get alerted when new episodes come out. We're every day at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. And we are also, I post long form interviews that I do with founders in the crypto and DeFi ecosystem. You can see all of the past episodes and interviews with founders like Sam Kazmian of Frax, Scoopy Trooples of Alchemix, and Maki from Sushi, and a bunch of others at missiondefi.com. That's missiondefi.com. So hope you guys will check it out and subscribe and keep up to date with everything that we're doing here at DeFi Lunch and Mission DeFi. Joe and I have been doing this now for 275 episodes, Joe.
Yeah, man, I'm amazed that we still are friends. after an hour a day for what? It's been a year and a quarter at least. So, but it's fun. And you learn about we try to cover the edge, tech edge, but also we cover, the macro stuff and TradeFi and how it affects crypto, where the money's coming from. So it's always kind of a give or take chat. But I love when we have guests like X7 coming on in 5 minutes. The other thing I was going to follow up on with you, Brad, is also DJ from Change is over there in a one-on-one, right? And Liquidity's over there in a one-on-one, and Anchor's over there in a one-on-one over on Mission DeFi.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Everybody browse through there. I think you've got about 80 episodes in there, or 120 or
80
okay.
plus. 80 plus. Okay. So I just confirmed DOJ press conference says Bits Lotto. So fucking Nothing Burger is correct. Absolutely correct. Nothing happening there.
I guess they were the ones that were going to launch that stable coin, right?
Yeah. Once again, Mr.
Your buddy?
Yeah. My favorite fudder, is wrong again. Shocking. I know. Yeah. Shocking, I know. Usually, folks, just so you know, the show is we cover news, we go yield hunting, we cover new projects, we cover new tools. Every day we're here to help you do better in DeFi, understand the ecosystem, learn from it, and also help projects grow and succeed. So Niblet says, interesting chart from Ritz-Holtz today showing if you invested in China in 1994, you would be down 21.6%. Holy shit. Wow. All right.
Yeah. No, that could be a whole show, that topic. I mean, with the demographics imploding, growth rate at 3%, a $14 trillion haircut coming in the real estate sector, population depop down to 700 million by 2100. I mean, it's peak China, baby, at this point.
Yeah. Well, look, and again, we always talk about kind of indirect impacts of things that are happening. Depopulation, reductions in populations, I think just leads to more automation, robotics, and AI. In the short term, it's economic pain. In the longer term, I think that becomes a big focus of a lot of countries when population starts having an impact. So,
the main effect on their economy is that they won't have the growth to support the senior populations and the retirees. I mean, right now, the Dank
Right.
family, dual income families, most of that money goes to support parents. I mean, they're
Yeah.
making good coin, but there's no safety net there. I think they get in apartments that are like state owned for like, $40 a month, and that's all they have. So the implication is that it's that pyramid. If you don't have younger people coming in and pushing it up, you basically get to where everybody's being supported by a smaller group.
Well,
Think
and I
about,
heard that their entire retirement system is in trouble already financially.
yeah, no, it's a slow motion train wreck getting ready to happen there.
Yep.
But it is what it is. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far right now because we got X7s
Rat hole.
coming in a couple minutes.
You're going to get some CCP censorship for that one.
Well, I get just attacked by the bots constantly when I sit there railing on them. But again, I love the Chinese people. I'm a man of the people, buddy. I just don't like what the government's doing to them. And, I mean, we could probably say that about just about anyone, but it seems these authoritarian ones are a little over the top for me.
Yeah, you think just a little bit. Hey, before Rob joins us, I saw another DeFi Llama launch. I haven't looked at this thing yet, but I might as well post it up while we're waiting. Because you know us, we've got to be shilling DeFi Llama every day who pay us a dime. But it's hard to avoid them with all the shit they do. So they launched a new delta neutral farming page based on perp hedges. It simulates the APY you can make with no price exposure by just shorting the token on perps, buying spot and farming with that token. Thread on how this works and how you can reap those benefits. So, once again, the DeFi Llama guys are cranking out. They're going to own DeFi, Joe. I'm telling you, they're going to own it.
Yeah, there's funny though. There's so many. And we know they're the 800-pound gorilla in the space, but there's so many analytics platforms coming out that I know. I thought that was funny too.
Shizzy says, "I knew I shouldn't have kept funds on that Bits Lotto exchange."
Hope that's not where all your phantom is.
Oh, Shizzy. Yeah. Is that bitslotto.com? Do you have to be able to read Russian? Anyway, sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't remember what I was saying.
You were saying about DeFi Llama owning DeFi.
Oh, yeah. Like Arkham Intelligence and, all the other dashboards and it's kind of data aggregators. There's comp coming, but the thing with DeFi Llama is, there's a token coming too.
Gotta be.
Yeah. So, be in there, do whatever you do. Because I think that you will be pleasantly surprised later.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, by the way, Arkham is a really nice product. Joe and I still have invites. You can DM us on Telegram or Twitter if you want one. They have promised people that provide referrals will get tokens, and we will take our little tokens and run if you sign up as a paying customer.
Yeah, I think they emailed me a referral link. I think I tweeted it once, but anybody can go and use that and get 10 invites.
Exactly.
To share with your friends. So
exactly.
I also have like 9 other invites left. I gave one away to, I can't remember, but maybe, I can't remember. I don't want to say the name wrong. I want to say like I am Sheldon.eth or something like that. But, very, very nice guy. But still, they're all out there. But do we have here we go. We got people queuing up.
We have our guest arriving. Black Triangle says X7 finance censorship resistant DeFi protocol, innovative approach that opens whole potential of Web3 finance and power of DAO with extremely powerful tools. Well, let's find out all about that. Welcome. Is this Rob?
This is not. This is Doc. I'm sure Rob will be joining us here in a minute. But
how you doing, Doc?
GM guys, we got
some
news.
GM,
we got some news
GA
here about
for
what.
Us.
All right, yeah. That DOJ announcement got us all hot and bothered here.
All a tizzy for absolutely nothing.
I've never heard of bits. What was it? Never
Bit
heard
Lotso. And how do you announce that it's going to be a major international breakdown and it's that? I mean, seriously, who's going to pay attention?
I couldn't tell you.
So we got Doc and we got Rob the Bank from X7 Finance joining us. Welcome on board, Rob.
Thanks, guys. How you doing?
Good, man. Glad to have you here. Appreciate you guys doing this. I took a dive through the white paper. I know Joe has as well, and pretty impressed with the concept. But why don't the two of you quickly give us a quick introduction of yourselves, how you got into this game, and then talk to us about kind of the where X7 came from and why, and then let's get into what it does. Rob, you want to go first?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Cool.
I think actually giving our personal bios sheds light on the X7 origin story, and so it's worth going.
Perfect. Beautiful.
By the way, Brad, we've never met, so it's good to meet you.
You as well, man.
But yeah, so I am just a community member on X7, as with Doc, as with everybody in our Telegram, and even running our Twitter account. The builders of X7 are a collective of anonymous developers all around the world who clearly have deep crypto experience. We can get into how we know that. But my role in the community, so I stumbled across X7 as a new live pair back on August 23rd, I think. Realized, or I followed an account on Twitter that tweeted out, "Hey, what's this X7 M105 contract?" And at the time, that was the V1 contract of the X7 finance ecosystem. I'm at this point a native to the crypto space, specifically the degen space, like we call it, right? So all these micro caps that stealth launch on Uniswap easily, and so. There's thousands of DeFi enthusiasts that are looking at these contracts as soon as they go live. I was fortunate enough to be one of them, and so I found X7 probably an hour after it launched. And when a live pair is launched, anybody can buy into it. So I put a little skin in the game, and I decided to go along for the ride.
Nice.
At the time, X7 was completely unknown. No one actually knew what this was. There wasn't a website. There was no social channel.
You didn't know what you were buying. You just bought it.
So yes, exactly. That sounds way worse in hindsight, but at the time, again,
a cool name.
Depending on how native your listeners are to crypto, the contract was what is called renounced, and the liquidity was burned. So what that meant essentially was that the money couldn't be rugged, right? Like the developer who launched this project couldn't just pull everybody's funds out of the contract. And so It was essentially safe. Doesn't mean your investment's not going to go down 99%, but it meant that the developer or whoever owned this contract, whoever deployed this contract, couldn't, directly steal money. So from that perspective, I was like, all right, the thing's quote unquote safe, right? As safe as anything can be in the world.
Now, the smart contract you're referring to, this wasn't the fully developed X7 finance system. This was the smart contract around the initial token launch.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we actually had a V1 and then a V2. Our developers successfully migrated not just one V1 to V2 contract. They actually migrated 8 tokens simultaneously from V1 to V2. The V1 contracts were really like an alpha release of the ecosystem. Okay. And there are a lot of moving parts to this ecosystem. It's beautifully designed. The tokenomics are brilliant, and all of the contracts, all the tokens are interconnected. And so the alpha release was really just to ensure that kind of the liquidity and those interconnections between the tokens were all running smoothly. There was a few deficiencies in those V1 contracts that the developers explained in an on-chain message. And that's why the V2s were launched. But anyway, just fast forwarding back a little, or rewinding back to my role, I was, one of the first couple dozen holders of the ecosystem. And we had no idea what this was. We, for 5 days, actually didn't know what was going on. And someone created a Telegram group where people could join. And so we had this really small group of, 30 or 50 people in the Telegram speculating on what X7 was. What was really, really, really compelling to everybody was that the deployer wallet, so the wallet that actually released the very first contract, had not been active since 2017. So this thing back in 2017 was slinging around 1,400 ETH, 800 ETH, 1,500 ETH in a single transaction, right? Millions of dollars. And it just piqued our interest because you don't see that.
Sure.
Yet. And so this inactive deployer wallet connected to millions of dollars of ETH from, an era where, DeFi was in its early days, it just felt like there was something really big happening behind the scenes. Eventually, about 5 days after the first contract launched, we got a message on chain from our developers that gave a brief overview about what the X7 ecosystem was intended to be, which we'll get into that as well. But My role in about that first month are developers who only communicate on chain. They send messages through the blockchain, which is pretty cool. If you've never seen that, I encourage everybody to go check it out. And they nominated 5 early holders or community members to essentially control multisig. And so I was one of the 5 that were nominated. We get access to a very small portion of funds that are funneled to our multisig through smart contracts. So it's all trustless. And then, we've held weekly Twitter spaces pretty much every week since the first contract went live. And I often will join those spaces and help educate people on what X7 Finance is about. And so that's why I'm here today. And Doc also has a kind of public speaking role with us for that educational content as well.
All right, we'll get to Doc in just a minute, but I have to comment on kind of the intriguing, mysterious, shadowy supercoder model for this launch, which I have to believe is also part of the intrigue of people wanting to be a part of it. Excuse me. Absolutely. Choking on iced tea. Did the white paper come from these guys? I mean, did they distribute a white paper, or was it written by the community based on messages you were getting from the coders?
So the white paper has been authored by the developers, and we know that because the link to the white paper was sent through the blockchain. However, the white paper was not available for probably the first 6 to 8 weeks. I can't remember exactly when it went live, but it was probably sometime in October. So again, the people who bought, and frankly, even the people who hold right now, put a lot of faith into what was just essentially a super big wallet that was deploying these contracts, and then a one blockchain message that was kind of go into. But we do know that the developers really value. So there's a lot of components to X7. I think all of them are equally valuable: the technology, the community, the decentralization, and last but not least, the censorship resistance of the ecosystem. This project really embodies the best of DeFi. And we know that the developers intentionally stealth launched in the way that they did for 2 reasons. One, they didn't want their own acquaintances to essentially have kind of early access and have too much control over the DAO governance structure. They wanted this to really be a fair stealth launch that equally distributed say across essentially early DeFi enthusiasts. But that second piece of it is also another reason why they stealth launched the way that they did. They wanted to attract DeFi enthusiasts who are really in tune with what's happening on a daily basis, not just in the industry, but on the blockchain. They wanted to quickly appeal to people who would understand the benefit of the product that they were building. And by stealth launching, they did that super effectively. I don't want to get too grandiose, but to be totally honest, I can't think of a project that has stealth launched more beautifully than probably Bitcoin itself. If X7 goes to where we want it to go to, it will go down in history as probably one of the most perfectly executed stealth launches of all time.
I frigging love this launch model, and I had zero clue about it before this conversation. So
it's incredible.
Pretty fucking blown away. I'm like, what the fuck?
No, it's incredible. I've never seen, honestly, I all the community members know that sometimes I spend too much time on the origin story because the product itself is brilliant. The product market fit is incredible, but it's not just that. It's the community, the bootstrapped community, the stealth launch, the equal distribution of DAO control. That all just comes together. Whoever is behind it, whoever is building these smart contracts, there's 7 developers total, have clearly been thinking through not just the product market fit, but the entire execution of this for a very, very, very long time.
It's phenomenal. Doc sent me a link to the wallet that's communicating on chain, to the transactions communicating on chain. And so I'll put this in the show notes, but you guys can go in and see this. When you do go to look at it in Etherscan, there'll be a click to see more link here. So click to see more, and then you want to come over to view input as and UTF-8, and that'll convert the code in the message so you can see what their messages are. This one, I don't know when this one hit, but it's really a fascinating model. 2 days and 4 hours ago. So really, this is, I can definitely see having noticed this at the time you did, having put some money into it just for the game of it at this point. So
yeah, the intrigue was very strong. And since then it's been, I actually can't remember if it's been 5 or 6 months. but the whole story has unfolded, and now we have a very clear picture of what X7 finance is all about. But yeah, at the time it was mostly just mystery.
That's brilliant. This is just really brilliant. I'm pretty
Yeah.
blown.
The mystery's been fun, but I've been exactly like Rob, where you spend hours sometimes just reading through everything. And myself, I say this pretty much on every Twitter Spaces. I've read the white paper now probably 50 to 100 times.
Oh my God.
And it's so beautifully written and so dense in terms of the technical components behind it. I learn something new every time, but the idea on the surface is still incredibly simple. And that to me is, usually where great businesses, great ideas, take off, is when the idea on the surface is relatively simple.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. And I went through the white paper this morning to make sure I at least had some insights into kind of what is being created here. What's the current? Oh, first of all, Doc, we didn't give you a chance to do a little bit of intro on you, if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean it's fine, and I think Rob sold himself short, a little bit. So we're both X7 DAO members. There's 7 core coins right now in the ecosystem, and again, we could legitimately be here talking hours about how these work, how they back the ecosystem and whatnot. Rob has a little bit more important role than I. Obviously, he was A, earlier, but B, the devs have been very clear about making everything censorship proof and decentralization, but they recognize to get some of these pieces off the ground, to pay somebody in potentially, I don't even know, maybe fiat, or get on a show or whatnot, everything can't be crypto. So they've clearly identified this in their on-chain messages. Sometimes you gotta trust some individuals, and
Sure.
so as a community, we kind of got together and voted on 5 individuals that we nominated to have control of a Gnosis vault that they funded, and now they can vote for specific little marketing tasks and whatnot. And we've even set up a second council for this discount selection committee to kind of go out to the community and interact with these developers, ask questions, and potentially give them a discount on their initial liquidity loan, which we'll get into. So that aspect is, they've been very, very, very careful and detailed about how they built this community. And so Rob and I, that's why we continue to kind of engage back and forth with them, is because this DAO has true power. And it's just, you're learning so much early on that you can see where that power is going to, really have a huge effect on the ecosystem here very quickly.
In terms of communicating, are you communicating back to them? Are they watching the chat, and so they're responding to things that you guys are doing, or how are you guys bi-directionally doing that?
Yeah, so yes, they obviously, we know that they do watch some aspects. Early on, we had what we called a research channel, which was separate, if you will, from our main chat that gets flooded with hype and sharing of gifts and things like that. But a really great example of this is, as we're getting close to this entire ecosystem being launched, and there are like these few things that they've actually specifically said, hey, we want to maintain a competitive advantage as long as possible, because as soon as these smart contracts go live, everybody can see them. Somebody could potentially duplicate. You can't duplicate our community. You just can't do that.
Sure.
But they want to maintain that competitive advantage. And so as we're interfacing with some of these early stage devs that are looking to potentially launch on X7 and Exchange, they've got questions that we want to kind of go through. We sent them an on-chain message, and literally, Rob, what was it, 12 hours later, they came back with just like, a book of answers. And it's just like, okay, like, damn, these guys are not, they know exactly what's going on, and they recognize, hey, we've got to be able to, provide the community with, the data and the answers in order to kind of get this rocket ship off the ground.
That's great.
There are honestly very, very few protocols in my opinion, that are truly decentralized. It's kind of this buzzword that gets passed around.
I think you could count them on one hand.
Yes, couldn't agree more. And I don't want to FUD any specific project or throw anything under the bus, but like when you compare the decentralized nature of X7 to Uniswap, for instance, they're just not even on the same level. And I actually brought up so at some point in the next minute or two, we should give a brief overview about what X7 actually is.
Yeah, we'll climb there.
The core product, but these protocols have CEOs. They raised money through venture backing. Like they have like token unlocks. I mean, none of that can be decentralized in the way that X7 is.
Right.
And so it has honestly been just an incredible experiment. It almost feels like a social experiment to be a part of how do you run a potentially like paradigm shifting protocol in a truly decentralized manner. And I think the developers behind this are putting on a clinic for how you do that. Honestly, I've just felt lucky to be a part of it.
It's got to be a blast.
Yeah, it's been an absolute blast. I really just I don't think you can overstate how decentralized this truly is.
And the community, community echoes. They echo that in the sense of we don't want to know who they are. We don't.
Right.
It's better. It truly is better that way. And they had a few on-chain messages that this system was born, with even deeper decentralization from the Tornado Cash sanctions, from what's happened obviously with the FTX saga. And so when you talk about things like IFPS, where they can't, take down the site, when you talk about, they've gone through on this Uniswap fork that the exchange specifically is built off of, and they've removed all of these centralized node providers, which could theoretically, if you wanted to, take some nefarious actions, yes, you could do some really damaging things, with these node providers. And so that's where it's just like every single on-chain message, you continue to realize the thought that's going into this. But I agree with Rob. We should definitely get into, some high-level overview, and then we can get into the weeds. And I'm super interested to hear you guys' questions as to what you guys, all the projects you see on a constant basis, what questions you guys have, just off the jump.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think in terms of the decentralized nature of it, I definitely think this is a next level play. One of the ones that I think is most decentralized in the whole ecosystem that was though venture backed was Liquidity, and the decentralization for them comes from having released the contracts completely with no editorial control over code after the fact, which is something I'd love to see. 200,000x in the space. But we don't see that. And there are very few projects that are even doing that level of decentralization. So this is fascinating. All right, let's get into, why don't you guys kind of give us a quick overview. I have some screenshots loaded up that are going to take over the screen, and I'll post them up as we go. And I've got a few notes in the screenshots that I wanted to talk about because there are some interesting things now that I understand the origin story that impact some of the questions or thoughts I had as I was reading through it. But I want to let you two kind of dive into what X7 is, how it functions, how the decentralization comes into play for it, what the benefits are to the different users within the space and the use cases for it, if that makes sense.
Yep, that sounds great. And I'm glad to hear that the origin story hopefully created even more excitement for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
The X7 ecosystem actually appeals to a number of stakeholders, project launchers, traders, lenders, and then just DeFi enthusiasts who kind of want to say in the future of where this industry is going. However, the core product, like if you can boil X7 down into one like very simple explanation, it is a decentralized exchange that allows for borrowed LP. Essentially borrowed liquidity for your token. Right. That sounds simple. I don't know, the nature of listeners in the audience here, but when I say decentralized exchange, think about something like Uniswap, right? Like Uniswap lets anybody create a token instantly. It's pretty seamless. However, when you create a token, you have to provide liquidity for that token. If you don't, there's no market for it, right?
Right.
The higher the liquidity, generally the higher an investment can be, the more money somebody can put in without, increasing slippage and price impact. But additionally, if you're looking to launch a token, you have to put up that liquidity yourself. So
right.
let's say you're a developer genius in India and you have limited access to funds, but you have a fantastic idea, right? You want to launch a token to make a market for your business or your idea, but you might only have one ETH in your wallet, right? You might only have $1,000 or $2,000 to launch liquidity with. Now what you can do is come to X7 and you can borrow up to 100 times the amount of ETH in your wallet, actually up to 1,000 times, sorry. To begin, the lending term will be about 10x. So let's say you can essentially put up 1 ETH of collateral and borrow 10 ETH for liquidity. And now you've created a sufficiently liquid market for your token. That doesn't, the ramifications of this, I think, are so much bigger than people realize. Like, we should talk about network effects and all of the other downstream implications of launching a liquidity pair on exchange, which is the name of our decentralized exchange, as opposed to Uniswap, for instance.
Right.
I really want to spend time talking about that. But,
Sure.
But that's the core problem that X7 is solving. It's essentially providing access to institutional size capital for anybody in the world with an idea, right? It's really, you're empowering visionaries and entrepreneurs to start tokens and businesses and ecosystems without any bias against their financial circumstances. It also provides a super compelling option for lenders, because you can essentially lend money into the ecosystem risk-free. Everything that I'm talking about now is protected by an ecosystem of smart contracts. And those smart contracts are designed in a way that ensures the borrowed ETH, for instance, can't be stolen. It can't be hard rugged out of the ecosystem. Like, exchange is really the ecosystem that's owning and operating all of this exchange. So anyway, sorry, that was a little long-winded, but
no, that's good.
Yeah.
That's absolutely perfect. That's the kind of things we need to hear about. Okay. So the concept is that, and this, like you said, this is a very common problem for startups in DeFi. You launch something, and then how do you get liquidity? And there are a lot of places to go and set up LPs. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the funds in there to support trading with an AMM model, then nothing's going to happen with that. And you can't support growing it enough to really attract attention, to attract volume, et cetera.
Yes. And sorry, I would just add to
Go ahead.
that, Brad. One of the oldest problems, not just in DeFi, but frankly in finance and capitalism, is over collateralization, right? And what I can't think of another use case, another product out there where you can borrow up to 1,000 times the amount of your principal. That doesn't exist.
Right.
And the way that X7 has solved this problem, we actually don't know all of the details yet. To Doc's point, they're keeping some of it behind the scenes to not give away first mover advantage. But that is like a huge game changer. I think it's honestly a paradigm shift in how business can be done, because again, like, there are borrowers and lenders all around the world, but if you are that guy in India, for instance, or maybe a country where you don't have as much access to capital, you can't borrow 50 grand to go launch your token. Or if you did, you'd have to put up 35 grand of capital, right? So this under collateralization is a huge piece of the ecosystem.
It's brilliant. I do want to understand better how it's possible. Obviously, it's possible because of the lending pools coming from the protocol, but also lending pools by members of the community that get built. And I think there's a couple of other things real quick on the high level that are important about this model. The first is that it solves the problem of liquidity for new projects. The second thing that I think it does is it embraces kind of this owned liquidity that so many protocols want to have control over, kind of the liquidity that they have. And the third thing it does is that if it works, if you can get enough of both sides of the marketplace, the lenders and the projects that need liquidity, it then makes exchange a huge player in the world of DEX in crypto, because now so much is piling into this, and so much funds are piling into this. If it's like I said, self-feeding back and forth, that it becomes very rapidly difficult to ignore it. And it just feeds on the existing problem of liquidity in the space anyway, and could make it incredibly impressive. The other thing that I think does is when institutional crypto as well as non-crypto money starts to come back into the space, something that has proven over a bit of time to be risk-free in concept could attract significant amounts of money, so that it's not only startups that are leveraging this, but even established players in the space.
Yeah. And I actually linked a tweet in chat, which Devs recently sent us an on-chain message that went through kind of something that would happen potentially in a non-DeFi and crypto project. So they gave the example of a coffee shop that's trying to raise 100K. And when people talk about, hey, how is crypto impacting the real world? Well, here you go. Here's an example of now how you can create a liquid market for those early stage investors that can potentially have the ability to either obviously help out this business get off the ground, but B, really have a way to exit that position in some way, shape, or form. And so this is where Rob and I kind of were oohing and ahhing over this one. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, where X7 is essentially acting as a bank with smart contracts, underwriting it in a sense. And so, yes, we're launching with 3 different types of loans, but when you talk about that collateral, that lending pool, which by the way can never leave the ecosystem, it's there. It can't be
right.
In any way, shape, or form taken out. It's only going to grow. It's only going to grow. You all of a sudden have this huge, potentially 800-pound gorilla in the room that can start to finance all these different ideas.
And where do you think this? Let's take a startup coffee shop, for example, putting up 10K and getting 100K in liquidity. Retail investors can then participate in owning their token. So then the additional income is coming into the coffee shop, or the funds are coming into the coffee shop from the sale of the tokens. Is that kind of what you think the vision encompasses here? Or is it go beyond that there's other lending protocols based around it?
It could, but I think you guys hit on a real interesting point when you stumbled across this a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, which was, hey, this could actually, we have a liquidity crunch in the market right now. This could actually free up a ton of liquidity for now. Instead of me needing to go and raise 100K to start, I've now got 90K additional if I went and still got that 100K, but I didn't need to put it up to put it to market, where I can actually use it to get the business off the ground. Launch mechanics for, if we're just maybe sticking on DeFi products,
right?
Launch mechanics are absolutely critical. I founded many businesses. The hardest part is those first couple months, those first couple years, and access to liquidity, access to cash on hand is so critical. And having this under collateralization of it seems like something that can really change the space for the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let me jump in for a second, Brad. That was the first thing I noticed there, guys, is that having been involved in tons of startups and background in finance, it's all about the working capital. And when you're starting something new and you have to put all the money into a liquidity pool to get liquidity for your tokens, that just doesn't make sense. And that's why I see this as being, huge, and why, I got super excited about this.
Joe, I think this message is for you. I don't think it was directed at me. I just wanted to make sure you saw that.
Well, there, guys. And Joe, I agree with you. And this sounds silly, but I think it's important. Like, the amount of protocols or tokens in DeFi that do not have product market fit, it's almost all of them. Like, I would honestly say 99% of tokens out there don't have product market fit. Nobody actually wants what the product does. And you can see that in real time by measuring like activity on whether it's a play to earn game or I don't know, some other, simple utility that requires token access. Nobody uses it. And it's so rare to find a project that hits that product market fit nerve as hard as X7 does. And the scope of the problem here is massive. To your point, Brad, if this works, if project launchers actually borrow capital from X7 to launch their project, then X7 captures the head of the snake, right? Everyone who trades that token is trading through exchange.
Right.
And so it's just a massive problem to have identified even to begin with. And that was refreshing for me to see. That's one of the reasons I've been so interested in it. And the total addressable market for the problem is, I mean, I originally thought the total addressable market is DeFi trading volume, right? Like our stated goal from the developers is to capture 1% of all trading volume on Ethereum, which, to put into perspective, would be about $1 billion a day and would put X7 on par with Uniswap. But then when you look at the on-chain message that the developer sent about, for instance, a coffee shop creating a market for their own token, you realize actually the total addressable market here is pretty much infinite. You know, we're not talking about how we take on Uniswap. We're talking about how we take on JP Morgan.
Sure. And I think inherent, some of the things I noticed going through the white paper is that the potential for ecosystem around exchange is tremendous. Started noticing that right away with kind of the NFTs that get held. But I think that there is if the community together can leverage kind of what's here, the volume that is occurring, the lending mechanisms that are occurring, that there are all kinds of other ecosystem extensions that can come from this that just can blow it up even bigger. So it's all on you two.
Exactly. I think the next one that would be good, and again, please jump in. Like I said, we could be talking about questions for hours. That ecosystem overview that's in the white paper is really, it's kind of illuminating into how the pieces work together, how it's differentiates.
That's not it.
No, I know, I'm getting it.
Yeah, I could talk for hours. And how it differentiates from the model that is Uniswap right now. And so the model right now for Uniswap, you go with, let's just make up a number of 10% of your supply, 10 ETH, you create a pair, you enable trading on your smart contract, and people are able to trade in and out of that pool. We went just through our loans example. In our example of X7, you'd put up 1 ETH, take 10% of your tokens, and immediately have that 10 ETH available where you only needed to put up 1 ETH. And the difference between X7 and Uniswap is they have reduced the fee from 0.3% of each trade, which the LP providers get, to 0.2. And they also, this is a huge thing which you were hitting on earlier, in exchange, they are guaranteeing that they will take the deepest liquidity pair possible, even if it's not the X7 liquidity pair. So similar to like a 1 inch, right now they said, hey, this is all going to be on the front end, but they have, goals and have their eyes set on making it all in one transaction where it's potentially, taking a piece of a Uniswap liquidity pool, a piece of 1 inch, a piece of X7, and putting it in one transaction. And to me, that's, again, where I get a little bit of goosebumps of like, why would you trade on another decentralized exchange if you knew you were getting access to the deepest liquidity pairs possible?
Yeah, absolutely. No, like I said, I understand their desire to get first mover advantage here because this is one of those cases where often in tech, sometimes you don't get that even if you were first, right? In this case, this is a way to lock up a shit ton of activity, volume, and liquidity, but it has to happen at a very rapid pace before everyone else comes out and tries to copy it, because then you've got that advantage going in. So I definitely think that the potential is huge. I've got that overview up if you wanted to talk up to it.
Yeah, I mean, this, again, each of these pieces of the ecosystem, and Rob, feel free to jump in and take any of these as well. But I think as you look at all of these different pieces that make up a full decentralized exchange, one of the most important things, and they reference it in a number of their on-chain messages, is as soon as this piece is live, they are handing over control to the DAO. So the DAO is going to have the ability to set loan terms, to set taxes, to set, all these, potentially invest in future, development. And so frequently you see a DAO kind of come after the fact of a project, either faltering or maybe it needs some direction and, now let's create the DAO. This is being founded from the beginning, with the DAO being super active in how this exchange is kind of getting off the ground, and to have full control of these mechanisms gives the community, traders, liquidity providers, everybody a chance to obviously have a vote, but also have control of what's kind of going on in the ecosystem.
Well, and I found it interesting, and I want to make sure I read this correctly. I found it interesting that the core smart contracts, those are not modifiable, but the mechanisms, lending terms, a bunch of different mechanisms are listed in the white paper. Those are the things that can be influenced by DAO vote, but the core system can't be altered. But there are mechanisms that they've identified that the DAO can be in control of.
100%, 100% true.
Awesome. Is there anything else specifically within this you guys want to walk through, or you want to walk through the entire chart?
Yeah. Why don't you guys talk a little bit about the tokens, specifically X7R and X7 DAO, and then the constellation and how those all fit into the NFT utility piece?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're listening to this and you're saying, hey, this sounds great, I want access, to the upside of what this idea could potentially do, X7R is your...
Oh, did Doc cut out for you guys?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he cut out for me too. I'll ping him quickly. But I'll pick it up.
Did I lose you guys?
I agree with what he was saying. So
did I? Sorry, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yes. I kicked my power cord. You want it's the main token you want access to is the X7R. It's your reward token. This is going to be the token that, as fees from the DEX come in, from these loans come in, those funds are going to be used to buy back X7R as well as burn X7R. So X7R is a deflationary token in nature. Okay. Again, you'll hear this frequently. The DAO has control to be able to oscillate that up and down in terms of what threshold they're buying back, what are we reinvesting into the lending pool. And even devs have been very upfront and honest and saying there's some of these pieces inherently we don't know. We're gonna have to see how the market reacts. But X7R is the main retail token that we do see being traded, they've said frequently, on all even centralized exchanges, major centralized, and it will be a token that eventually will have a 0% tax. So right now there is a tax, and that tax is utilized really twofold. One, to fund the lending pool so that we can have our initial liquidity loans go out, but two, to fund a little bit of development and marketing to kind of get this one off the ground. So that's the first main token. The second main token is X7 DAO. And this has some really, really cool features within it. I think the coolest one is at certain thresholds, you have the ability to vote, obviously on proposals. And at a higher threshold, you have the ability to put forth a proposal that you would like for the ecosystem. So these are the two larger market caps right now. The most fun, I would say, for our community, that I'm sure a lot of our community, especially our hardcore X7 enthusiasts, they love the constellation tokens, and they are really, really cool. So they are 5 constellation tokens, X7 105 101 through 5, and these constellation tokens have their main function is to back the lending pool for pieces of the ecosystem that either may work. So meaning if funds are now coming in from these loans being processed, because there obviously are fees for the loans to go live, or as a backing, for instance, if a loan were liquidated and needed reserves to be then deployed back, they act as the backing system. All of these pieces, again, complete clarity on the system is not there yet, specifically because these devs are we're at a really, really, really exciting time of we got about half of the final contracts, if you will, for this DEX about 3 days ago in this X7D token, which is just essentially it's a 1-to-1 ETH reserve, similar to a wrapped ETH. This next set of contracts, which devs have outlined, we're going to get before the end of the month. That's it. This puppy's going live, and you're going to kind of be able to see and look at. And Holy Mackerel there just pointed out, constellations are this is where they see arbitrage between them, so they remain a constant floor price across the 5, and so that's where we see quite a bit of arbitrage coming.
Yeah, just to add to the constellation tokens, it's another element of the ecosystem that I've never seen exist anywhere else, and essentially it's an experiment in shared liquidity. And sorry, Doc, if you touched on this, I had to mute myself to take a call quickly. But all of the constellation tokens, there are 5 of them, and they all have their own liquidity pair. So they're tradable with each other. So if the price of one token goes down by 10%, you can technically trade it up, bid it up by swapping it with one of the other 4 tokens. I've never seen that done before. But to Holy Mackerel's point, it's almost like this bot arbitrage playground where these really high velocity trading bots, especially as those tokens reach higher market caps with higher liquidity, can be trading hundreds of thousands of dollars for little scalps across the ecosystem. But of course, 1 to 2% of those trades is getting charged a fee, which then feeds our own liquidity pool and our own buybacks. Really, really interesting stuff in the constellation tokens.
That's awesome. I didn't see much documentation on it in the white paper. Is there elsewhere where we can go take a look at that?
So in regards to that, and this is again the other piece, full technical documentation of all of these aspects. They have said on delivery we will give full documentation on these. Yeah.
And you said timing on everything was about what?
Yeah, we're inside of 2 weeks left. So they
Holy
have
shit.
said by the 31st, we're going to get this next set. And it really is. It's basically the routing mechanisms of how these loans are processed, and probably some of the fun parts of like how these loans are, going to be managed by a smart contract. That's probably the most complex piece, of this system. And I can see why they've left this one to be last. But
well, additionally, Doc explained that X7D, the deposit token, just went live a few days ago. Prior to that, our lending pool has just been funded by a portion of transactions and NFT mints. We currently have a lending pool of almost 80 grand. So it's been building pretty quickly. The contract for X7D is now live, but we actually haven't integrated, or the developers have not yet integrated a front-end user interface to mint X7D from the website. That X7D is critical to the lending pool, right? Like without the lending pool, exchange doesn't really have much. It's arguably its biggest asset, both financially and from a marketing perspective. And so the ability to mint X7D is super, super recent. And unless you're minting through Etherscan, it's not even possible. In the next few days, we should have a user interface to mint X7D directly on site. And I think that lending pool is going to grow pretty significantly, pretty substantially. It almost, the developers speak to this in the white paper, but if you're holding ETH, you might as well convert it into X7D or convert a portion of it, because the smart contracts ensure that it's safely in the ecosystem. But then you also earn a return on it as people borrow that ETH from the lending pool to launch their tokens. And so I think you're going to see a lot of existing X7 holders who have ETH in their wallet converting it into X7 deposit tokens. that will be significantly easier in probably just a few days. And I think the growth of that lending pool will probably align very nicely with the ability to borrow from the lending pool. And like Doc said, we're estimating probably around 2 weeks until everything we're talking about here is actually rolled out.
If this takes off, it'll be interesting to see if the rate of return is much higher than what you can get staking. How much of that piles in over here? That's actually a really strong marketing lead for the project.
I know. I think again, it's another network effect, another flywheel, right? Capturing project launchers is the ultimate flywheel because, like we talked about, if the liquidity pairs on exchange, all trading is going through us. But there's going to be whales out there who probably mint $1 million of X7 deposit tokens. The payback terms on these first loans are probably going to be a maximum of 90 days. And we're probably talking between 10 to 20% borrowing fees. So yeah, the APR could be huge, right? Like if it depends on the utilization of the lending pool. But if multiple projects are borrowing from it multiple times, in theory, you could lend out your ETH a couple times a year, earning really strong yield on it. Yeah. And also, we actually don't know exactly how the performance of Constellation tokens ties into the return on investment there, but there is an element of that too. So as those Constellation tokens increase in floor price, a percentage of those profits are distributed to X7D minters.
Nice. Slumdog Shillionaire says X7100 series of tokens are burned on every transaction while continually raising its floor price. It also provides further opportunities to mint new X7 deposit tokens. Mark Ritten says there will also be a market for selling the X7D NFTs as future speculation. So
that one's really cool. It's basically going to create kind of a futures market. And they mentioned recently one of the other cool things is, so if the lending pool cannot service the loan, meaning there's not enough funds available, or the DAO doesn't approve it in some way, shape, or form. If ultimately that it has that power, a NFT is minted for this loan, and anyone has the ability then to pick up that NFT and obviously get the fees back for providing the collateral for that loan. So there's some really cool aspects of how that's where that word bank comes in, of you're introducing these trustless contracts where, hey, I want to provide liquidity for this, or I want to fund this project. Guess what? Here's a great trustless way to process that transaction on chain.
Yeah. This section of the white paper talks about that whole model of not having enough liquidity, but then the NFT gets minted. And then, of course, the NFT can be used to do whatever you want. It represents ownership. It represents real value on the back end. So there's all kinds of ways to leverage that. I think that's incredibly powerful. I noted that in the notes I was making.
Yeah. One thing also I thought was interesting, I think, Rob, you said it, or maybe it was Doc, but the fact that if you're putting in X7D, ETH in there, and the return on each note is 10 to 20% over 90 days, you're talking about 40 to 80% APR on your ETH deposits, essentially in the platform, which could be an interesting alternative when people start pulling out of, staking nodes and things like that, if they do, or people, because we're always talking about where people want to get yield. And, you just don't see a lot of it out there on ETH these days that's significant. But that could be an interesting play, a nice alternative for others that don't want to, park it somewhere for 6%, let's say.
I mean, absolutely. Hasn't that been the theme of 2022? Of where did all these yields come from? Why am I returning 6 to 8% on USDC? Here's an exact reason why you'd be returning 10-20%, and loans that they do. That's why these banks own the world. This is why DeFi narrative is so strong, and this is an opportunity for us all. I would be remiss to not mention our NFTs, which I believe, Brad, you mentioned earlier. So we have a very, very small amount of these NFTs that the devs have made available to us. They're on X7 Finance. I don't know the exact link to it, if you will, But each of these NFTs offer some really, really interesting utility, if you will, all from either trading utility, so reduced fees for those arbitrage opportunities, to discounts on initial liquidity loans. So, and there's a very, very finite amount of these. They're pretty nominal in value right now, anywhere from 1 ETH all the way down to 0.1 ETH. And all of these, the reason why they made these available is to, have a way to fund that initial lending pool. But we all in the community have talked about, and they've actually, even devs have mentioned in an on-chain message, as soon as this piece goes live, all of these prices will be raised because the utility, is so strong within them. Yeah, they're really, really, really cool. I will mention one other cool one, which I think is the last one.
That's
the Magister.
You're bringing up the one that was my next question.
Yeah, the Magister one.
Win Magister.
The Win Magister. You know what? We've all said that's going to be an exciting day when that first one is minted. So if you note there's 7 that are already minted.
For the devs.
And each of the devs have one of those. And I just, you think about it, my goodness, this is where these guys are valuing their voting power, to be able to override, a significant portion of a vote. This is real power here.
So let's explain that real quickly for everybody. So the Magister tokens are basically a safety check or a control mechanism to provide part of it is to provide a veto mechanism, right? And they're 50 ETH each. And initially, the first set of them are to the core devs, which actually solves one of the biggest problems with kind of decentralization, right? Yeah. Which is you have a group of people that want to lead a project, but ultimately they also don't want the risk of leading the project, so they want to hand it off. But there's this moment where it's like the cutoff, right? And suddenly everyone in the DAO is voting. You don't have enough participation, or you have stupid decisions made or whatever. Well, this is really a brilliant mechanism to me. So the Magister tokens are 7 initially to devs, up to 42. Is that the max number? 42, I think.
49 total.
49.
42 additional.
42 left after their 7. Right. Okay. Right. And they give voting control to people willing to spend 50 ETH or the devs initially to control decisions that are made by the DAO to make sure that they're not fucking everything up.
Brad, I completely agree. So this was one of the earlier revelations, I'd say, of the ecosystem, because these NFTs were dropped probably 3 months ago now.
Right.
And to me, it symbolizes a few things. Firstly, I've never seen a governance structure set up like this, and it's really unique. You guys might know of another one, but I don't. I really don't. It's just
I've not seen one trying to solve the problem this way, and it's smart.
No.
This system of checks and balances actually very much mimics a lot of democracies, and it makes complete sense.
Right.
It makes complete sense. When you see it, you actually wonder, how has this never happened before?
Right.
But additionally, it's just another element that's symbolic of the foresight that the developers here are showing. They're understanding where this machine can go, and a seat at the table, is costing quite a lot of money to have the influence there. It's again, we talked about how this deployer wallet is back from the 2017 era, and talked about how there's 7 developers building this. Their foresight on every other piece of the ecosystem has obviously been top class, but this to me is just another element that makes it so exciting. It really demonstrates to me the long-term vision that they have here, the long-term commitment to the project that this is exhibiting, and then they're pricing it appropriately.
Yeah. Well, and here's the smart thing about this, because I have seen similar motivators or incentives for projects to be involved, right? Because first of all, they're going to dilute their influence and control over the Magister tokens as they release more of them, right? So that more people can become involved. But if I'm a protocol, and I want to be involved in this exchange, I want to be involved in this liquidity, then it makes sense for me to buy one of these to get the discounts that I would get from the system, but also to help control the ultimate destiny of the system. Like, I could see Frax owning one and Alchemix owning one. And so I can definitely see that they are also building in the right incentives for people to play this game.
Yes.
And that to me is very powerful because it gives voting control, but it doesn't allow any singular entity to have complete control, but it still allows the devs to assert their control in the early days until the DAO is on its feet functioning the way they believe it needs to be functioning. And I think it's just a brilliant model.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And Brad, the game theory behind every single piece of the ecosystem all plays into itself, right? So if someone mints a Magister for 50 ETH, or let's say 40 Magisters are minted for 50 ETH a piece, right? We're talking about 2,000 ETH that are entering X7's ecosystem splitter. That goes directly to funding the lending pool. That goes directly to buyback and burns of X7R, the constellations, and DAO, right? All of that raises the floor price of the entire ecosystem, which then creates more incentive for buying, right? And creates more capital for borrowing. It's just incredible how everything, we talked about this earlier, but now that we've spent an hour going through the ecosystem, you can see how interconnected it is. And the success of one component, right? Like the success of the Magisters is going to fuel the success of everything else. And the success of everything else is going to fuel the success of the Magisters. So there's just so many built-in network effects here that are just brilliantly designed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
go ahead, Joe.
the way you said earlier with, the checks and balances, I mean, that's something that we've noted. DAOs have typically been used like to sort of, mask, I would say, activities of, in the last year, in the US in particular, not to get to true decentralization. And whenever they get to that point, like you said, there's always one or two whales that control that process. We saw it in multiple, even, people gaming the systems and emptying treasuries. Can't remember the names of those at the moment, but it seems like that transition from, to that full decentralization has to happen in a slower way with sort of this type of a model where you kind of have a board of directors type governance that then cedes the power to the people within the model when it's time. That is something that we really haven't seen anywhere else. So to me, that's a responsible governance way that gets to the end goal, which is the governance decentralization as well, not just the code stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's really smart. I'm thoroughly impressed. I mean, it's obvious that the guys behind this have been in this space for a while, been thinking about it for a while, have seen the problems and came up with a solution. I would encourage everybody listening. There's an interesting gamification parallel here to DYAD, which is an NFT-backed gamified stablecoin model that's coming out. I'd encourage everybody to check that out. I won't dive into it here, but there are some really interesting parallels between all of the potential kind of gamification mechanisms that can occur on the back end. And it's probably going to attract very similar investors and folks into each of these. So maybe there's a potential partnership down the line as well. We'll see. So let me catch up with a few comments here because I just want to make sure that I don't leave out the people from your community and the normal community that are talking. KB says functioning similar to a bank, the lending pool takes deposits, converts them to loan assets, manages the life cycle of a loan issued to X7's DEX and distributes the loan profits to the ecosystem. Holy Mackerel says, great point, Joe. No Horns, No Tail says, what kind of assets will the deposited ETH be converted into? How can users be sure that the NFT backing is not undercut?
Yeah, that's a great question. They have, and actually in the most recent on-chain, last one or two, they actually outline that. It's the most carefully composed contract is to make sure that there is absolutely no way that ETH can be, somehow diluted within the system. It is always going to exist within the system. And I think it's also important to go back on this point that Rob mentioned of a couple of pieces of how these devs earned this trust, so much. So it was one of the initial things Rob said. As we move to this V1 to V2 contracts, if you will, liquidity was locked on them. And so the only way in which they could launch, at the exact same market cap was for us to all send in tokens to a centralized wallet. And they literally laid out, here's this 10-step process of how this is actually, these contracts are going to go live, liquidity is going to be added, and here's even the minutes of which it's going to happen. And
Wow.
when I tell you the minutes, at a stroke of midnight, when everything just worked perfectly.
Nice.
And you think about, okay, great, yes, that maybe they saw something different and they wanted V2 contracts. But to us, it was so much more of like, here's an example of them actually, earning trust
Yeah.
in saying, I want to develop a trustless protocol. You guys kind of got it. And they said it, this is the only point when you're going to have to trust us. And it kind of happened. And so that's where all of these contracts are composed in a way where that ETH cannot, leave the system.
Yeah,
And
that's
one
excellent.
other, one other piece I'd add to that, Doc. Thanks for bringing that up. The developers have minimized trust as much as it could possibly be minimized, even in the scenario that Doc was just talking through with the contract upgrades. You did not need to participate in that. You could have sold your tokens prior, you could have waited for the migration, and you could have bought back in. Instead, over 98% of all tokens were put into the migrator.
That's awesome.
Which, it's incredible. Like literally 98% plus
Wow.
community participation in this migration contract when everybody had the option to opt out. Everybody could have opted out. But the reason they opted in is because for the 2 or 3 months prior to that, the developers did hit every single timeline that they laid out. They said, our NFTs are going live at the stroke of midnight. Boom, NFTs were live. Constellation tokens going live at the stroke of midnight. And you actually get early trading window of 10 minutes if you hold DAO. Boom, that executed flawlessly. And so they performed perfectly for months on end leading up to this migration anyway. But then when you just consider the fact that 98% of the community participated in this, the community is an asset for the ecosystem.
Absolutely. It's the best mode. Let me ask you a quick question. Do you guys think they had all of this in the can before they did the stealth launch and everything's been ready to go prior?
It's a great question. I think that they had to have been workshopping it for probably closer to 2 years than 2 months. I mean, there's just no way you can orchestrate all of this in a few weeks or a few months prior to the launch. I do think it's clear that they've been building the smart contracts over the last 6 months.
Okay,
but
that's
even
what I meant.
forming this collective of developers, I think that takes time. How do you find and identify 7 developers completely anonymously? In a way that's censorship resistant and totally decentralized. So I don't know, honestly, how they put this together behind the scenes. I think they mapped out the entire ecosystem significantly earlier than the first contract was launched, because only 5 days after that first contract launch, we actually got an entire map of how this was going to look. Since then, we've been able to fill in a lot of color. That map didn't have everything laid out as nicely as the white paper, for instance, but it was clearly thought through well in advance of the contracts going live.
Yeah. KB makes a good point. The 50 ETH that are paid for the Magister tokens will go directly into token liquidity across the ecosystem, offers discounts on DEX trading and loan origination, make DAO proposals and veto rights to vote against DAO proposals. Let's see what else.
This is a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Degen Slot says only 100 million DAO tokens, need 500,000 DAO to make proposals. Math says less than 200 people can make proposals. That's bullish. So limiting the ability for garbage proposals to hit the DAO, I assume is the point. Mackerel says, hell yeah, it is. Degen Slot says, bring up the time Unusual used X7 motto, then Uniswap crashed for 2 days. Not sure what that is.
Yeah, I think it was when Uniswap was having some connectivity issues or whatnot. I myself, I'm an early stage software engineer, mainly predominantly in front end infrastructure, and so that decentralization aspect, I've mentioned it many times on calls. To host a site of this magnitude on IFPS would be quite a feat. And to be able to do it in a truly decentralized manner, from not having to rely upon those third-party node providers, that would be, yeah, you're talking about down to the metal, DeFi right there. You cannot get any more than that. And so, yeah, when you see about how Uniswap has adjusted their fee structures for certain tokens, how they're making votes, how things are being moved around, it's you can see where the power is not with the people or the traders. It's all of a
Right.
sudden becoming a little bit more of a CEX than a DEX. Now, of course, yes, you still own your funds, but you're not necessarily just out there yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. What have they discussed how they're going to handle things like security audits of the contracts?
Yeah, they've been pretty honest about how they do that. And usually, and even we'll use the most recent example of X7D. So they locked liquidity on the contract, if you will, for 2 weeks or 2 days. I'm not exactly sure. And the main reasoning for that is just like, hey, we want to give us, the community, everybody to make sure that things are working within the ecosystem. As soon as we've given a go ahead, guess what? We'll lock it then for a year. And they even state in the header of each of the contracts which ones will be renounced, and which ones will not. In terms of audits, we've watched some of their multi-sig, the developer wallet that we know, go out, and some have speculated that those are for audits. They have stated, yes, all of these contracts, will be audited. And obviously that's a helpful piece when you start to talk in millions of dollars that could go into this ecosystem. Audits are going to be necessary. So I know they are not worried, if you will, or not against having their code audited.
It says, Mark quoted, to ensure our code is trusted and that the release is flawless, X7's leveraged DEX trading will not begin until we have published third-party security audits. Awesome. Perfect answer. That's great. Beautiful. I'm going through my notes quick to see if there was anything else that I felt was really important for us to touch on. Are there things currently that you guys think we should also be thinking about or talking about? I mean, are there things happening in the community where people are saying, hey, maybe I could build something around this? Or what are you guys able to do so far in terms of marketing, biz dev, promotions, whatever you might be working on as a community?
I'll actually take that one. I'm pretty sure Rob is, but that's probably the most important thing that we could be stating here. So that second committee that we formed was this discount selection committee. And the whole point of this committee is to go out into the community, speak with early stage devs that are looking to launch a project here soon, and talk with them. What are you thinking about your launch mechanics? How, are you going to get this initial liquidity together? What types of pieces, are you looking for in a launch? And what this committee has the power to do is grant an NFT that gives a discount on that loan. So I believe actually Rob is one of those
Awesome.
on that committee. If not, head into our Telegram. There's plenty of those members that would love to talk to you. And the whole point of this is we want to have great projects, that are obviously creating volume, launch on exchange so they can be, they can, as Rob has said, getting the head of the snake is our goal here. And if we can get these, these project devs that I'm sure you all know, you talk to early stage founders, they're hard to come by, especially the great ones, the visionaries. And that's who X7 is aiming to attract.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, we definitely have a few of those in our community, for sure.
Yeah. Cross-chain?
They have definitely said the goal is to launch on Ethereum, but they absolutely have their sights set on being a multi-chain ecosystem. I think obviously being around the Ethereum L2s would definitely be first to go. I haven't heard anything outside of pieces that are on the Ethereum ecosystem, but I don't see how a protocol like this would not work.
To me, the multi-chain rollout is probably the most overlooked piece of this roadmap, because when I look at businesses and opportunities and whatnot, you always start with total addressable market, right? And that sounds a little cliche if people are familiar with venture capital and whatnot, they almost beat it to death to the point where it's almost a useless idea.
Right.
But like I talked about earlier, I just think so few protocols and tokens actually have any product market fit, period. So once you find a token that has product market fit, how big is the opportunity? The Ethereum blockchain has $100 billion of trading volume alone. But when we talk about the fact that this is going to go multi-chain, we're talking probably closer to $1 trillion of trading volume on a daily basis, especially in a bull market. Yeah. And so to me, it's another symbol of the fact that the true potential of X7, I think, is uncapped. Combine all blockchain trading volume plus anything as small as a local coffee shop that can borrow money from the lending pool in a permissionless, trustless way. There's no limit to how big this can get. And that gets me super excited.
Yeah, that's amazing. KBC has a modification to the pair contracts that ensures at a code level that there is absolutely no ability through preloading, griefing, token minting, token honeypotting, or any other token level behavior for the loaned ETH liquidity to be removed prior to loan term satisfaction. Care has also been taken to ensure no loaned ETH can be trapped either maliciously or accidentally by token level behavior. Sounds great. Joe, anything else you want to ask right now?
I think I'm hitting the wall here. I did notice one comment. I mean, it's just overload, for me, because I've been so excited about this for a couple of weeks. And it's good just to hear the community asking questions and hear Rob and Doc fielding them so well. And I love the fact that, you can see, how the developers have built up trust with you guys, and as they will with the rest of the community. And it reminds me of, sort of like some of the other projects we've been around, Brad, where, token migrations happen, token merges happen, and people stay in the community. Well, some stay in the community and wait for it to happen. They trust for it to happen when they could just sell and go. And so to me, I think there's so many positive nuggets that I see here that, make it really look like, execution risk to me. But I mean, that's the primary hurdle. And all I'm seeing is execution. Proper execution. So how often do you really see developers commit to a timeline and hit it every time?
Yeah.
I mean, usually the Telegram channels would be like, we're working hard. It's almost there when it's ready. And then eventually it's like, when it's ready, we'll tell you. Well, it's not, it's kind of a weakness in the space. And to see that it's done so well here is refreshing to me as well.
I will say that every time a developer gives me a timeline, I triple it. And having worked with hundreds of developers, I have never seen them deliver them on time, ever, a project on time. So thus my question, did you guys think they had this all in the can beforehand?
Yeah.
So
no, that was perfect. Yeah.
But anyway, Doc, Rob, you guys have anything else you want to tell us? What you'd like people to do, how they can take action? Should they visit the website? Make sure you guys send me community links and anything else I don't have necessarily right up front, so I can put them in the show notes. But anything else you want to request, ask, more community expertise you need?
First, thank you guys. This has been amazing. You've gained a new listener in myself ever since you guys went live on X7. So like and subscribe to this channel. I think you guys do a great job. I love the learning. That's what we're all here. Mm-hmm. I noted it at the top. Joe just kind of said this. It's overload. You have to go back to these things and look at it from a different angle. Be an optimist, be a pessimist. And that's really, what you'll find in our community too. So we'll definitely get you the Telegram, link. We have an incredible Discord. I would be remiss also to not mention each of these community members that have taken on different aspects with no payment, whatsoever, to just get this, entire community, from building an entire Discord from scratch to this community D app, which has, ability for these constellation tokens. Launched a contract where you can buy these constellation tokens evenly across all of them, because it's such a complex. So you have all these different community members that have all pulled together to build this core community. So if you have questions, you want to learn about it, this is the place. You've got, you want your high-paced Telegram-asked questions, go in there. You want a little bit slower Discord, where you've got some time, go there. But we're excited for this launch in the next. Go ahead.
No, you know what? I can't. I will, be completely honest with you. The fervent reaction to tweets about you guys coming on and about the project. Immediately put up my shilly, scammy alarm bells. Because that's kind of the response you normally get from some projects. But now I get it, right? Now I totally understand kind of not only the mistake, but the methodology, the proving themselves, the documentation, and the way the community has come together to actually build this thing. The devs have given to you guys as a community the freedom to build around this and build a strong community to make it sustainable. And they've given you the incentives to do it as well. And so it's really brilliant. So rather than this being a case of like a crazy egotistical leader or something else, you guys have just really tapped into what can be incredibly exciting. And that is a community galvanized around a great idea that solves a big problem space and that has huge financial reward potential as well. And I'm sure everybody's just having a great time engaging and a great time in the space. So I applaud you guys for what you're doing. It must be a lot of fun to have come this far and been there from the beginning. But I would encourage, we always say this isn't financial advice, but this to me is one of those where you really, if you're going to play, invest the time to get to know the community and read the documentation and understand what's going on here for yourself, so that if you're going to invest in it, that you get on it.
Yeah, I completely agree, Brad. And I think the strength of the community to me is a byproduct of the product and also the stealth launch, right? They were all perfectly executed. But I also echo what Doc said. It's really refreshing to talk with you guys in particular. You clearly did a lot of research before the call, which is just awesome. It allows us to have real discussions and especially at a time like this in the market, to be able to speak with people who are a part of DeFi for the right reasons, right? Like people who really believe in this as the future of technology, the future of finance.
Yep.
And I think it's very easy to get lost in that, especially in a bull market or especially among the thousands of projects, frankly, that don't have the right intentions. So I agree with Doc. Just thanks for having us on. It's been a really fun experience. And then the two ways that you can most benefit X7 if you're a listener are help us grow the lending pool and help us find projects. We do those two things and we'll take on Uniswap in the next 6 months.
That's beautiful. How's the biz dev outreach going, guys?
We actually, so again, it's all community driven.
Right.
Doc's right. I'm one of I think there's 7 members on the discount selection committee. So we have special NFT discounts for people to borrow at a reduced rate from the lending pool. We have a number of projects that have reached out to us, and we have a number of projects that we're also out there hunting for. Right now, we still just require a few more pieces of documentation from the developers on exactly how to go about borrowing and launching. So we have a number of projects lined up, but frankly, you can't have too many. If we get 5, 10, 50, 500, eventually 5,000 projects trading on exchange, then we win. We achieve our goal of 1% of Ethereum trading volume. So we can always use more help there. And we're also talking in the background about setting up a community referral program. So if you bring a project to you, we can obviously either pay for that project or set up a commission, for instance. Also talking about a grant program to incentivize developers to either build on exchange or migrate their projects from Uniswap to exchange to free up some of their liquidity funds. So lots of ways to get involved, of course, beyond just holding the tokens.
It's interesting. We talk about the layer 1 chain Canto quite a bit here. And I think there'd be some real synergies between the ethos and the needs of both projects on there, because everything on Canto is a startup. So I think there could be some interesting dynamics between them. But Doc, were you going to say something else, or Rob? It's one of you. I think I cut you off.
No, I really don't have anything else. I think, again, I'd be remiss. Our community loves to recite this, and it's in every piece that the devs mention. It says, trust no one, trust code, long live DeFi. And that's the mantra, really, of X7 Finance.
I love it. You guys did a fantastic job representing the community. I'm sure they're all proud of you. So thanks for coming on. Thanks for the education. KB said in recent years, exchanges across the globe have been shut their doors to customers simply because the sovereign state has decreed it. X7 is designed to overcome those shortcomings and give power back to people. Then he's thanked us and thanked you, Rob and Doc. Fantastic work, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Excellent overview discussion. We could have 5 more shows like this.
Yeah, we'll follow up and do it.
We'll follow up and do it
again afterwards. Absolutely.
Sure.
All right, guys, take care. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
See ya. Oh man, that was awesome. Good shit.
Yeah, I mean, when they reached out to me on Twitter, I was like, just started dating, and I said, this is something we need to look into more. And the more I hear, the more I like. Particularly, I love the fact that how the developers are operating, and I love the point that you brought up about. It seems like a lot of this was already in the can, so they could hit those deadlines, which tells me that since 2017, they've been building and testing and perfecting. Waiting to get to this point instead of, starting now and saying, oh, here's the idea, let's do it. And then you got to build it. It seems to me like it's, the big foundations are already there. So
yeah, that's
super
the beauty
positive in my mind.
No, I'm thoroughly impressed with this project. I'm impressed with the community. The representation by Rob and Doc was excellent. And I just, the fucking mystery and intrigue of the lunch model. It's brilliant. Just brilliant.
Yeah.
It attracts people who have a desire to dig and be a detective and understand it better. And it intrigues people because it's mysterious and it has all this potential, and bleeding out little bits and pieces of it over time makes people want more. And so those parts are all of it strategically brilliant, but the incentive models built into it just make total sense. And it really hit me this morning when I was going through the white paper. I'm thoroughly impressed with this entire thing. So we need to follow up on this. I'm going to go fire up the wallet, Joe, because I think there's some good shit to do here.
Yeah, I saw that. It looks like it's like X7s are about. I can't remember because it was on ETH. So I was looking at it, but it looked like it was like maybe 0.055. Like I think it was about 30 to 1 for the X7, like say 30 to the dollar, and I think X7 DAO was about 300 a dollar, or vice versa. I can't remember. So there's still plenty of time to take positions when people feel it's time, and hopefully ride a rocket up.
But do your own research. Euphoric said, I didn't understand it all, but found it very compelling nonetheless. Good show. Thank you, Euphoric. Thank you, everybody that participated today. All of our regulars that kind of sat back and took a back seat today. Thank you so much for letting their community dive in and engage with us and educate us. That's always great to see. We love and appreciate all of you, new folks and the old. Without you, this show sucks. So the engagement we get from everybody participating is great. Thank you for Euphoric. Thank you, KB. Thank you, DGen Slots, Holy Mackerel, Mark Renton. I got all these. I got KB. I got DGen Slots. Slumdog Shillionaire. Thank you so much for participating and adding your commentary and education. Did I say Holy Mackerel? Thank you, Holy Mackerel. If I didn't, I think I got just about every. Jens Van Canagem, and all of our regulars, Shizzy, Niblets, Eamon, Sean, Chuck, everybody that was here, appreciate it. Black Triangle, thank you. Adds one double D, thank you. James Strickland, thanks, buddy. Appreciate you being here. Blue, thanks so much. If I missed anybody, my apologies, but you guys are what make the show great. So thanks so much for joining us. We will have more on this in the future, I can guarantee you, as we have our favorite projects that we kind of keep track of as we go forward. Right, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Absolutely.
Right, have a great day. Listen, if you're listening to us and you're new, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or you're listening on the podcast. If you're on YouTube right now, please be sure to click the subscribe button, click the little bell so you get alerted when new episodes come out of both this show and the Mission DeFi show. And smash that thumbs up so that you boost us in the algo. We really appreciate it. If you could take a minute to do that, it would be great help. Tell your friends and family about Mission DeFi, and visit us at missiondefi.com. Joe, have a great afternoon.
You too, buddy. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, man.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.